All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for
Bungo Stray Dogs, Season 1, Episode 7.
A bomb. A bomb, yeah. We are in a situation where Dopo is solving a mystery right now. We've got an old case from before. Where we had a serial bomber of sorts, or more of a murderer of some kind, who now is potentially being picked up again.
Right, or
we thought he was dead.
Right, but at the very least, the identity, in some regard, of that person is being used, and there is definitely, most definitely, a bomb out there.
Right.
They found the place where it was made, and now they need to figure out how to find it and disarm it.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's something interesting where there could be something semi-related to the Port Mafia, but I don't believe the person doing this is in the Port Mafia.
Right. Akutagawa showed up.
Yeah,
and was thankfully handled quite well by Dopo.
Right.
But
because there's a possibility.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, there's a possibility that this person who's doing this is trying to maybe target the Port Mafia.
Maybe.
Possibly. But we've got Atsushi and Dazai kind of helping with this. It could end up having some connection to a boy. That's a hacker boy who Dopo has been kind of being the surrogate dad to,
right?
In a way,
or trying anyways.
Trying to, yeah. So it's interesting because that guy was, you know, giving off some vibes
to the targets of the previous bomber.
Yeah, exactly. Or was it the targets, or was it the detective?
Well, yeah, the detective. Yeah, the people that were sent in and ended up dying.
Right. They were not the targets though intentionally. It was the fact that they were sent in.
The screw up of all the
incompetently.
Exactly.
By all the agencies.
Yeah.
And thus they all died.
Could potentially give them a motive.
Yeah. So, y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. Alright everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion.
Okay, so Dopo. You have a past.
You have a past,
and that is an interesting little twist there, because one, if he is the Azure King, it explains a ton why him and Desire partners, because they have very similar pasts.
Yes.
But it also makes a lot of things much more complicated, specifically with regards to the kid that died. Yeah. I'm guessing he died, but
I'm pretty sure he's dead. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that there were 3 shots going off, not because the kid fired 3 times into the girl, but
when the girl showed up, she fired like a solid 3 shots or something.
Yeah.
It was very much a make sure that this person will be dead, and the fact that she was again targeting Dopo, and then the kid jumped in the way. It's like okay, yeah, so it probably was that continuation of the why the ADA. You know what kind of a beef does this person have with them? Why is that? You know,
it has nothing to do with the
ADA itself.
Yep.
It's all about a specific person that works there.
Yep.
And that's it's poetic, Dopo poet. You know that the person that signified, I'm guessing, his desire to turn away from that life and change, right? Because he was caring for the child of one of the people he killed.
Right.
That person then dies to save him from the person from his past.
Yep.
Okay.
And there's no justice in it at all.
Nope.
No. This is just a sad consequence of committing so wholly to your ideals.
Yeah.
And I like it because there's a lot that you could look at this and say, well, you know, the ideals themselves are not necessarily at fault. It's the fact that as a human being, we cannot necessarily wholly live up to some ideals. That's just not, it's not in our nature. It's not in our capacity as flawed creatures. We only have so much capacity to do certain things. Now, in some ways, Dopo is the ultimate I can do anything kind of person because of his ability. So it creates maybe this notion that no. If I have enough perspective, if I have enough time, if I have enough thought, if I have enough, then surely I can overcome anything.
Right.
As long as my ideals are things I actually stay in servitude to.
Right.
But no, in this case, you got slapped upside the head a second time, potentially, if the Azure King is one to kind of make note of here.
Yeah, your ideals are unrealistic. And I gotta say, I like what was done with the girl here because from the previous episode,
Sakaki, I think was her name.
yeah. From the previous episode, my opinion of her place in this sort of arc wasn't super high. It seemed fairly like straightforward of like, okay.
Either she's entirely involved.
Right, she's entirely involved. Why was she in a separate place from all the other people? Why was she drowned instead of gassed? You know, all these things, right? Why is she...
Sus.
You know, sus out to wazoo. It's like, this is like a bad Bond villain, right? But the idea that it goes a bit deeper than simply, twist. Like, because if the twist...
she was the one taking the Azure Messenger's
right.
identity.
Yeah. Like, her being sus, it's like, of course that's not a twist. But what is a twist is why she's sus.
Right.
You know, of what the story is there. And that I am all for. Because this setup was something that was clearly tied to Dopo's past, right? But as far as, like, really getting at his personality and character, his ideals, if you will, this is so much more of a direct way of doing it, basically.
Yeah.
Like,
everything is tied to him.
Yeah.
In some ways, Dazai knew that it was all tied to him in a lot of ways because he probably has already known for a while that this whole Azure King is something of his, and that's why they are the ones on this case. It's like, no, this is ours. We got this. And there's that kind of subtle just back and forth of the two being like, you know, we know what's going on. But the fact that Dazai kept her in the
keep your
room
enemies close.
and just stayed basically by her. No, worry. I didn't lay a hand on her. You know, no.
She was kept in a separate room, you know? Yeah.
And I liked the correction that was kind of interesting of that she has already broken up with her partner.
Right.
Not that he's died, which is what she calls it, but to him, it's no, they broke up.
Yeah.
And I wonder, did she ever actually tell him that?
I'm sure she probably said that, you know, she broke up with her partner or whatever.
Right, but is Dazai saying that to piss off Dopo a little bit because he knows that she's probably the one connected to him, and that's why he's so possessive.
Sure, they can both kind of tell. Yeah.
Right. And that's why Dopo is getting so bent out of shape about Dazai making any moves on her and spending time with her during this whole thing.
Yeah, okay. Now just something that I want to say for the sake of throwing it out there, because is there a possibility that Dopo was actually just one of the people heading up the investigation into the whole Azure King thing before, and the visuals of them looking similar is more of like a Luke Skywalker in the cave kind of a thing, where it's like he could also be Darth Vader?
Sure.
And
very possible.
Because
I don't like it.
I don't like it as much either, but I want to just make sure I throw it out there in case that's what it is, because that would be also a reason for why she would want revenge on him, because he would have played a part in the Azure King getting taken down.
But I don't think
that's what it was.
He played a part in taking it down. No.
Yeah, it's more of just me not remembering the exact details from the previous episode of what was established, but
I can tell you that directly Dopo makes a point of talking about how all these other agencies were involved.
Right, exactly.
But the ADA was not involved, so he was not involved.
Okay, yeah.
And
that makes it a lot more interesting for me, and it's another example of how Bungo, as a series, can basically say, hey, here's some silly antics and things like that and whatnot, and we'll set it up so that you think it's one thing, and then we'll do something, and then all of a sudden, the rest of the episode, you have to look at it in a new light and new context, right? It takes on new meaning.
Yeah, all the silly antics are entirely thought out by the characters in a way that
there's a deeper meaning to it.
That is translatable before you get the reveal. It's just some of the details might be tricky to figure out.
Right.
So, like, for the Dazai one, I was very sus of the girl because of the fact that she was drowning and not gassed, right?
Yeah.
But Dazai taking such an interest in her reminded me of the incident with Dazai taking an interest in the other girl that showed up. Like,
the Port Mafia girl.
Yeah, and immediately be like, oh, yes.
Oh, these hands are so perfect.
Right. And anytime Dazai takes an interest in someone, it very much seems like he's already playing his, I'm just a fool. Don't pay
Don't mind the fool.
Yep. And this one, I think I gave it not enough credit because he seemed all in on just, oh, she's hot. Like I just
Right.
I could use a partner for a double suicide, you know?
Right, exactly. It's the whole thing of it could have just been that, right?
Yeah,
I would
but-
not put it past Dazai for it to just be
But
that.
so far, there has not been a moment where Dazai does just that. There's always
almost-
something else to it.
I almost wonder how much of, now granted, he did the whole double suicide thing with the waitress as well, and she didn't care for that. But there's a part of me that wonders if the whole double suicide thing he plays up just for the sake of like having that, like, okay, if you ask someone to do a double suicide with you, they are not going to suspect that you suspect them of being sus, right? They'll be like, you are a bit crazy, but they wouldn't. That's not something that would ever
I
cross
think
their
he
mind.
would start to maybe get a little bit antsy around being like in proximity to that person. 'Cause they
Definitely.
wouldn't have as much value for life, you know.
Yes.
So it's like, wait, you wouldn't kill me. And Dazai's like, no, of course not. And then you're like, I don't believe you any more or less by you saying
Right.
that. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna head out. Yeah.
Oh man.
But okay, but Dopo got this double episode focus, and he lost. He did
Dopo.
not get a happy ending here. I love that in some ways his character might be partners with Dazai because they've lost so much. And Dazai is
sure.
one where we don't know why he was a member of the Port Mafia to begin with.
Nope.
But I assume it wasn't just some purely selfish reason.
Well, who knows? You
Well,
know.
I mean, of course it could be, but I'm
Right.
saying that in terms of the thing that makes Dopo interesting, beyond just
the antics.
antics and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. He is the most straight-laced character we've seen in this story. And
Yep,
this
which is saying
backstory entirely
No.
puts that on its head by saying, no, actually, from a certain point of view, he is the least straight-laced person because
Right.
he's willing to...
He went full Kira.
Yeah, he went full Kira if this is who he was.
Yep. Which then just goes to show, oh damn, that's how important the Armed Detective Agency is, because it gave these people different lives where they can
Purpose.
actually purpose and do some good in the world to maybe
Yeah.
cover up for the bad that they've done, or to try and balance it out.
Yeah, kind of redemption.
Right, exactly. And
Yeah.
and what kind of change has gone on in these characters on the
Over
inside
time, yeah.
in order to make it so that they would actually go to something like this.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
So that Dazai would leave the Port Mafia, so that, Dopo would decide, maybe I don't want to do this whole Azure King thing. And I love the conversation that he has with Sasaki or whatever her name is.
Sakaki.
Yeah, at the graves.
Yes.
Right? Because, on its own, great conversation, right? With the extra context of, yes, my previous partner my boyfriend didn't break up with me. He died. Right? And it's like, oh yeah, that's a confrontation that's going on there, right? And yet at the same time, it's nope, this is what I feel to be important. I'm going to respect the dead as best I can.
Yeah. The parts where in the cafeteria conversation, the diner, where they're having the conversation about the whole thing, and we see the Azure King in those like specific moments or what have you. It's like there's this, this message, she called it maxim, that was given out basically to very Kira focused of like,
Right. An ideal, if you will.
Yes. And that's the thing that thematically ties them together, regardless of whether the identity is that it's Kunakita Dopo. But during this whole thing where she's like bringing up like all this stuff here about like, oh, why do you think, like what do you think about this case? What do you think about this situation?
Right.
Dopo seems like really uneasy throughout like this whole experience here.
Jeez, and she even said maybe he faked his death and is still, still out there.
Yeah,
Oh
exactly.
my God. Wow. Yeah.
And-
And it also explains why she knew so much about him, of course, because that was
Right.
just like, okay, this seems odd.
Yeah, and the kinds of things that she's talking about might be the kinds of things that other people wouldn't focus on.
Sure.
It's not that other people didn't know about it, but
Right.
it's very much a, oh, this is the way you're talking about
You talk
this.
as if you knew them.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, exactly.
And the way that as she's saying all the things, it will like occasionally show, you know, Dopo close up of his eyes as he's like watching her say all this stuff. It's like, okay.
Oh, and then literally, this is the best part. Well, the one who backed the Azure King into a corner is like, why is he targeting the ADA? Well, the one who backed the Azure King into a corner is Kunida-kun, who located his base. I see. Kunida-kun is the target of vengeance here.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Wow.
He straight up says it. Yeah. And then Dopo's like, no. See, he's dead.
Right, so-
Confirmed by forensic analysis.
Right. So it's definitely on the surface level a thing of revenge.
Oh, it's
because
Sasaki.
Sasaki. Okay.
Whoops,
Yeah.
I've been saying it
Because
wrong.
because he helped them locate the base, but at the same time, he could have totally been the Azure King, just setting up a faking of his death. And oh yeah, I helped them find the base. Oh no, how did I know where the base was? You know.
Yeah. But Dopo is the kind of person who sees justice and his ideals as being above things like the law, and in some ways, he did, at some point, human life.
Yeah.
And now, at the end, he finds out the truth of this situation at the expense of human life.
Yeah.
It's a very cruel twist, but the fact that in some ways it wasn't Dopo that dealt the killing, below
Right.
here.
Uh-huh.
And it was this boy's choice to save Dopo
Yep.
in that situation. He basically played out the ideals of his past in this boy that he kind of raised a little bit, if
Yeah.
you will.
And-
And that's the really beautiful thing about this. It's a really sick thing in some ways, but it's the idea that Dazai is letting Dopo see, hey, this boy, you're not his dad.
Right. You will never be his dad.
You'll
right?
never be his dad. But he maybe watched you, listened
Right.
to you.
And I'll bet, given the fact that he was able to figure this out just from, oh yeah, I hacked his email, and yeah, okay, has it happened yet?
Yeah. Yeah.
He probably knew that Dopo was the Azure King.
Uh-huh.
And I'm sure that was a whole mess of emotions and things that he had to process and stuff
It's very possible.
in
yeah.
order to, but at some point he reconciled them and he came to terms with what happened basically. And okay, I guess this guy is trying to set things right in some way, and he's doing his best to take care of me.
That's
I'll
why
make
he's
sure.
still kind of frustrated by him and
Yeah,
kind of...
and I'll make sure I remind
Rust
him,
told
you
him.
are not my dad.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, he jumps in the way of the bullets and saves him, and then also does the thing that Dopo has learned not to do, of not to kill, basically, and takes the gun and bang, bang, bang.
Yeah, I want to double check this, though, because I think the kid shot all 3 times.
Yep, I believe so. Which
And
is nice, because then it's sort of quid pro quo for how she shot him.
It's quid pro quo for how she shot him, but the thing that I think was really something I might have been confused about in the beginning was whether she shot back at the kid. I don't think she did.
I don't think so, no.
But her point of being like, your ideals won't let you shoot me here, Dopo. This
Right,
is
I've
something
lowered
where
my gun and
I've
all
lowered
that,
my
yeah.
gun. You wouldn't do this, right? You're a different person now, right?
Yeah.
But the person who has maybe taken a little bit of the extremes of his ideals,
Dazai's like, this is fine. I won't even do it.
I won't even do it. But
I'll just drop the gun. Oh, hey, and this person who's dying, he decides,
did he take on the ideals of the Azure King?
Right.
If he did, he will shoot her.
yeah,
If not, then we might be in a really, really
Interesting
awkward situation. Yeah.
right.
Where
Because in a lot of ways, the ultimate revenge that she would have on Dopo wouldn't be to kill him. It
No.
would be to make him basically stare his ideals in the face.
and
right?
and either abandon them or
Right, but
have them break him.
Yeah, but to have that kind of reconciliation, that rude awakening, right?
Yeah.
And by her being alive, that kind of makes it so it has to happen. In a
does.
lot of ways, by killing her, the kid basically saved Dopo from needing to actually face that past that had come back to haunt him.
deep.
Because
shit.
nope, she's all gone now.
You can just go on with your life,
You can
right?
go on with your life. You don't need to be reminded of the person you were.
Oof. But
That's
Dazai knows.
Oh, yeah.
And he'll remind him.
Oh, definitely.
In some ways, I really like...
Dopo knows.
Dopo knows as
I'll
well.
bet his notebook reminds him.
Oh, totally. I think his notebook, if anything, is what keeps him, for the most part, in line.
Yeah, like that.
So
in my mind, I see it as kind of like the equivalent of like a confessional almost, where it's these are both my ideals, but also all the ways maybe that I haven't lived up to my ideals, right?
Yeah.
And that's why he doesn't want to let anyone see it, you know. And it can be played off for comedy of like, oh, don't go reading what my ideal woman is like or anything, but it's the no, what would someone actually find in there?
Oh shit!
Yeah,
she was his ideal woman. So maybe in the previous episode, actually, did they ask, "Was your ideal woman like?" Like, could you describe your ideal woman or something like that? Was that a thing from...
I think they asked, but I don't think he answered. I think it was a thing that he didn't respond to.
Right. But it was something brought up in the previous episode,
But the idea was that it was in the notebook. And maybe that could then take on another, you know, an additional layer of importance for why she said this is unrealistic. Because she looks at the notebook and it's that, I'm not this person. You know, oh, this person that's your ideal, it isn't me.
Oh.
I guess it wasn't good enough for you. Is that kind of why you abandoned me, right?
Sure. Yeah, I do not see it in this previous episode, so it's probably from a different one specifically. But
yeah,
that's a really cool take, though. Oh shit.
So,
okay, but yeah, very very interesting stuff to kind of keep in context moving forward for Dopo, because he has had his character development recognized in where it's been up until now. But he is still in, if you will, a process of moving forward, if you will.
Sure.
He can do nothing else.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But acknowledge, learn, and keep moving forward.
And make the sacrifice of that kid worth it, because and you know, Sasaki, because they're gone now. Mm-hmm. So
and they don't care for your tears.
Well, they don't care for your tears. Your tears won't help them.
Mm-hmm.
And they died because of your ideals, right? Whether for them or as a result of them.
Yeah, I would say the kid more specifically was one that more died for his ideals.
Yeah.
Hers is interesting where we don't know what brought the two of them together entirely.
Right, but she clearly was all for his, you know, Azure King kind of stuff.
Right. But that's the thing of where they had some similar ideals.
Yes.
You know, in the
back
past.
then,
Back then. So I would make things a little bit, you know, muddied in the area of where her death is because of his ideals, but her decisions here, I would say, is more a little bit of her choice, because she's just tired and wants to.
It's totally still her choice, and even in the thing of with the kid, it's also the kid's choice, right? But Dopo, your ideals played a big part in this, and are they worth it?
Right.
You know?
I feel like I'm not explaining what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that the kid was influenced directly by Dopo's ideals because of the aspect of Dopo trying to be a part of his life, probably because he feels guilty about his dad dying. But the kid didn't come to Dopo with those ideals. He learned them over the course of time.
All right.
Thus, he, you know, there you go. But the girl, they probably met each other with ideals beforehand.
Right.
Meaning that they were enhancing each other's ideals by proximity, but she didn't have none of those ideals necessarily before coming into this. But, I mean, maybe the kid did too, because...
Yeah. I mean,
he
it
saw
had to
how
come from somewhere.
the agency that was incompetent failed his dad, and then he becomes a hacker, which, you know, is kind of like...
Rejecting society.
Rejecting society to do whatever it takes to stop, you know, these people from doing things. So, it's yeah. But then you could say that was because he killed them in that whole thing. So it
wibbly wobbly.
It does get all spaghettied in a really cool way. But okay, guys, that's the end of this. I don't think there's really any follow-up that they'll do.
I think the
Dopo's
next episode will probably be a new arc.
A new arc, new character focus. But yeah, this is a really good one.
Good stuff.
I would love to see Dazai as maybe the next one, if we're going into like, you know, the main boys.
Although I get the feeling his could be sort of a Spike Spiegel situation where it's like, okay, when we're dealing with like main plot arc Port Mafia stuff, then we get Dazai character focus, but not until then.
I mean, the Port Mafia tried to attack recently and it failed.
That's
so
true.
they might just be like, okay, it's upgrading time. Let's get more serious with this. And that's where, you know, Akutagawa and, you know,
His
Dazai,
whole crew coming. And Dazai.
right,
Yeah.
those two end up, you know, bumping into each other.
Right, because Akutagawa is definitely feels like the vicious equivalent.
The vicious equivalent.
You know, where
yes.
it's like, okay, when Akutagawa shows up, then our chances of getting Dazai backstory focus and stuff goes
Escalates.
up. Escalates by a lot. Yeah.
Right. But this is the other thing. They had some kind of other organization involved here. And that was never resolved.
I think it might have actually been resolved in this episode, and that was the people that they took out and stuff, and that it was just done really quickly.
No,
Because they talked about the mastermind that
yes.
that ended up being
Yeah,
Sasuke.
they could have just been hired by Sasuke, yes. But maybe
It's possible.
maybe
Yeah.
I just
Right, because the Port Mafia doesn't have to be the only, like, you know, criminal force or whatever out there, right? There would be others. It's just that the Port Mafia is kind of
Right.
the dominant dog in this neck of the woods.
I'm putting out the idea that there's a possibility that even she was getting used somewhat because of her desire being vengeance, and yet there was stuff
Okay.
about here's an outline for how to take over all of Yokohama, and maybe she just partnered with him to get manpower.
Yeah, that's what I thought they were implying is that she basically set them up to do all this, using them as kind of the scapegoat and like for her
Right.
proxy war.
Right, but those people don't just pop out of the ether.
No,
They could be connected to big people who have money and
possibly.
weapons and powers and stuff like that. So just
Yeah.
it's a thought. But y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get an early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access. You can chat with us in the community there about this show, about anime in general, and also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
We stream every weekday. The info's in the description.
Yes, if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb,
I'm Jacob.
and we'll see you all
Next time.